Am I the jerk for calling my husband delusional for demanding I give him half the profit of my business that he didn't support in the first place? My husband, 35-year-old male, is a bank clerk, and I, 29, have a working-from-home job which I can hardly bear since I'm an active outdoor person and I like doing gardening stuff in particular. I figured since I have a background in gardening, I'd use our spacious backyard to grow flowers and sell them online, after arranging and organizing them into bouquets. When I brought this up with my husband, he said this was the worst idea ever, and added that this would be a major waste of time and money and suggested I look for a second job instead. I didn't listen and started my business little by little. In a matter of 18 months, it started bringing in decent money, and I gained customers. My husband offered to look at how much I was able to make in the past months and was pretty impressed. The other day, he was standing with his drink while I was checking my flowers. He talked about what a good job I was doing keeping our business flowing. I corrected him about it being our business and reminded him about how little faith he had in my potential to make decent money out of growing, selling, and cutting flowers. He said, "Well, I honestly didn't think your little gardening hobby was going to get you anywhere. But now that business is flourishing, I want my fair share of the profit, and I won't settle for less than 50%. I was honestly completely caught off guard by what he said. He's shown zero interest in my business since it started up until this point. He in fact thought it was a waste of time and money. I was puzzled and asked why he thought he should get any share of profit, let alone 50%. His answer was that I was using his soil to grow my flowers on. I said that this was our house and our soil, not just his, since we're married and both our names are on the title. He said, "Actually, I owned this house long before you came along, so it's technically mine." I replied that he must be aware it'll be split in half in case of separation. He laughed and joked about how silly I was for hinting at separation just because he was asking for something that he so richly deserved, which is 50% of the profit. I said no and that he was delusional to ask, because even his soil alone doesn't magically grow my flowers. There's a lot of work to it, from picking, buying seeds, taking time, effort to care for them, collecting, trimming, and selling them while all he does is sit back. I'd argue that since things took off with the business, that quite frankly I've been spending more than him on necessities lately. But I still pour money back into the garden to be able to keep the business steady, with all the requirements that need to be met. I said it didn't matter to him when I started using his soil, so why now? He said it always matters when money is involved. We had an argument about it and he apologized, but only for approaching the subject so rudely, and still wants 50%. It's not like he needs the money for something urgent. In fact, he has more than enough. He's been silent about it after stating that he already said what he needed to say, and I needed to make the right decision. Am I the jerk? To clarify, my husband and I have both got our own salaries. We contribute equally towards expenses. It's his idea since he had a divorce before me. He still has things that he owns alone, which isn't bad since money has never been an issue. It's not like he needs money for an emergency or something, he just wants 50% of the profit going forward. This is a bit bloody weird if you ask me. If he's been benefiting from the business and the beautification of the property that you both live on, that he was presumably doing nothing with before, why would he want more? I'm going to make a wild guess that he isn't somehow a medieval baron and you don't live on an exorbitant taxation system of land rents with him. If this becomes your main source of income, the same way that, his job is, I just don't understand how he can justify the idea that the main thing you work at to support yourself could in any way be his. Do you take a literal half of his income? Maybe go through and look at your total expenses, and if your business ever starts putting you in the red, you can generously agree to his kind offer. Then see how long his resolution to be part owner lasts. I hope that this isn't so much a jerk situation as one that can be worked out with some talking and conflict resolution. Really, the husband in this story just comes across as kind of greedy. Otherwise, it seems like you've come to the right conclusion that if he keeps pressing the point, that you might be better off with a partner who has an appreciation of finances, relationships, and flowers. Am I the jerk for refusing to eat from my colleague's vegan birthday cake? I'm working in an office and I have a colleague, B, who routinely makes fun of vegans. I'm vegan and I never make a fuss about food. I go to the same restaurants as my coworkers during lunch hour, and I can always find myself something to eat without announcing my dietary choices. B keeps calling me out on it though, and she's very condescending about it. She keeps saying I'm just having a phase, and she keeps offering me bites of her lunch that contain cheese and meat, and when I refuse, she just goes, "Oh, come on, it's vegan, I promise." Wink, wink. It's very childish and annoying, and even other people ask her to tone it down, but she insists she's just joking. Last week, she brought a homemade cake to the office for her birthday, and when she put a slice down in front of me, I politely thanked her for it, but said I can't eat it. She said the cake is vegan, and she made it specifically so I could eat it. But knowing her very loose definition of vegan, I asked a few questions about the ingredients and she didn't check any of them for milk or eggs, so I thanked her again but refused the slice. She made a big scene out of it. She started crying and saying she just wanted to do something nice for me and now I ruined her birthday. Some colleagues told me not to mind her dramatics, but my boss told me that it was her birthday and I could have just given her cooking the benefit of the doubt. I sort of see his point, but I also feel like I don't need to justify my food choices to anyone, and I never asked her to make the cake vegan for me. Am I the jerk? Okay, is the narrator out of touch or completely justified in asking, what kind of flipping adult cares this much about their birthday at their workplace? At just about any workplace I've ever had, if nobody knew or acknowledged that I'd aged a year, I can't for the life of me imagine why I would care. You save that stuff for after work. Have a party, have a dinner, go out. Unless your workplace is your only social life, and to be honest, if that's the case, what's wrong with you? Why would it be that emotionally damaging that someone can't eat your birthday cake? Honestly, in my greedy brain, that's a massive plus. More cake for me. Honestly, it sounds like not only is the author not the jerk here, but that B might be kind of a jerk in general. I know that not all places are accepting of vegetarians and vegans, but this was written in 2020, and come on! We all know they exist, we have done for years. This can't be something that baffles you, B. And all your office mates clearly think you're being dramatic. Stop being dumb, stop being dramatic, and stop being a child who throws a tantrum because it's their birthday. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today I messed up by reviewing a lawn service. This is a relatively small mess up, but I cringed so hard after realizing what I did, I wanted to share it with you all. I have a small house in the middle of the block. The neighbors to my left have kids and are working from home, so they don't do much yard work. Neighbors to the right moved out and the landlord hasn't taken care of the backyard in months. I'm suffering from post-COVID fatigue and can barely bring myself to mow my lawn, let alone try my hand at the dozens of scrub trees and weeds, some of which are taller than my garage, and are encroaching upon my yard from all sides. The back fence had become tangled in a thick foot of vines, and I also have a Chinese wisteria that had grown out of control. It was starting to grow onto all the fence-lined trees and the neighbor's garage. I needed help. I found a great service on Google for my area. Wonderful prices. The crew came out and got to work. They tore through my backyard like a tree-trimming tornado. They cut back the wisteria beautifully. I was very impressed. I paid the crew, gave them a huge tip, and I wanted to let the boss know the great work they'd done. So I wrote up a little Google review. Their services are highly recommended. Thorough, fast, and clean. Reasonable prices. Shout out to Steve on an amazing trim job. I didn't notice anything wrong until the owner texted me and thanked me for the review before asking me to please edit it. I said, sure, why? He just said, lol, you'll see. I reread it and facepalmed. I'd left out the T on trim job. In short, I thanked a tree trimming service in a Google review with a special shout-out to an employee for being a wonderful and professional individual while he bent down and put his tongue in my butt. You know, I bet that guy got some amazing flack from his colleagues after that. I wonder if he even came out of it with a nickname. So you're definitely not a jerk by any stretch of the imagination, but in this case you may be described as the culprit of both your own and poor Steve's misfortune. Although, let's be honest, the whole incident is just objectively funny, and I'm sure eventually both of you will be able to laugh at it for a long time to come. Thank you to Steve and the customer with bad autocorrect or a filthy Freudian slipping mind for your services. Especially Steve. What you do takes grit, professionalism, and a willingness to get down and dirty that most people just don't possess. You can come down to my house and rim trim my unsightly hedge any time. Oh, you're telling me to exercise? Well, you should too. So my husband and I got married a year and a half ago, and when we got married I noticed that at that point I'd gained roughly about 15 pounds. Nothing crazy, just adding some hardly noticeable pudge around my tummy area. I didn't think too much of it. Now, I would jokingly, and he knows I'm joking, say that I'm gaining weight because I married him. I know that's not the case. The true culprit is a mix of cooking lots of yummy foods together, since we both love cooking and trying new stuff, and me switching to a new birth control. Anyway, 6 months in, I'm changing into a tank top and some old shorts to do some gardening, and these shorts, which used to fit me like a glove, now barely zipper up and leave me with a tiny little muffin top. Naturally, I pout at the realization, turn to my husband and show him. He gets a deer-in-the-headlights look as he realizes my dilemma, as his brain struggles to think of the least offensive response. He says, "Maybe you should work out?" We both had a good chuckle at that, and it did motivate me to put some more effort in. I haven't dropped the weight, but I haven't gained any more, and I'm good with my body image. But last night came my revenge. Hubby comes out of our walk-in closet with an armload of pants and throws them on the bed. I'm the one who sorts and collects things for donation. He was giving them to me to determine if they were fine and just needed a wash before donating, or if they were too far gone and were meant for the trash. He said, "These don't fit." I asked, "How? Are they too short?" "They're too tight around the waist." I held onto them to see if they'd fit again, but they still don't, so… A grin broke out across my face as I looked up at him from my computer. "Maybe you should work out." He looked at me for a second, and then he remembered, tried not to smile, and muttered a snickering, "Oh my God," as he rolled his eyes and left me to deal with the pants. I made sure to give him half my cheesecake slice later. Oh, come on, nobody is the jerk here, this is just cute. Mr. Husband here was caught in a cousin of the old "do I look fat in this" situation and panicked. Seems like the author took this in good humor and honestly has a much healthier approach to her body than just about anyone else I know. So good on them. And she got to turn the tables on him later, and they both enjoyed their comfort food and presumably kept right on going with the foods they like to eat. Wins all around, no villains, just two heroes. May we all find a relationship this chill. Months of paid vacation? I'll take it. This happened in Germany, so the laws are different to other countries, especially to the USA. The workers' protection laws in Germany are pretty good compared to the US. We Germans are allowed to work for more than 60 hours a week, but just for a short period of time in emergency situations. And people under the age of 18 aren't allowed to work for more than 8 hours per day and 5 days per week. There are some exceptions for people that do an apprenticeship as a baker or a cook and similar jobs, but that's it. I was working for a family-owned business, about 40 employees, a couple of years ago. My time there wasn't the best because I had huge problems with my boss's younger brother. He was on early pension and officially just working on a small part-time contract, while in reality working full-time and getting most of his salary out of pocket. That I was hired meant for him that he worked about half the hours he worked before, and having a huge pay cut because of me. It teed him off no end, as you can imagine. He talked crap about me behind my back all the time and tried to get me fired more than once. Dealing with him was a pain in the butt, but I didn't have to deal with him too often, and my coworkers were nice and the pay was good. So I didn't worry about finding another job despite my relationship with my boss and his wife getting worse over time too. My boss even came to me with 2 deliveries to customers because his brother probably told him I'd waste time during the deliveries. One day, I had to do a delivery with my boss's wife's car because the company car that I normally use was at an inspection that day and the timing couldn't have been worse. I scratched the fender of her car on a wall when I tried to get out of the parking spot. The scratches were barely noticeable, but I immediately reported it to one of my co-workers, so no one can say that I tried to put it under the rug. I did the delivery, and when I came back, my boss's wife was already waiting for me. She went completely ballistic, screamed at me for ruining her car without inspecting the damage before doing so, and said that she'll take the money for the repair out of my paycheck. She was incited by her brother-in-law. I don't know what he said to her in the 1.5 hours I was at our customers, and I also don't want to know. He was always talking crap about me behind my back for almost 3 years, and I can just guess what she was thinking at that moment. I told her that I won't pay for anything because the insurance will pay for it anyway, and that's what made her snap, and she slapped me in the face. I immediately turned around, grabbed my stuff, clocked out, and went to the doctor to get a sick note because of mental stress, which I threw into the company's mailbox in the evening. 2 days later, I got a termination letter in the mail and had to laugh while reading just the first sentence. We are terminating your work contract immediately, or, if this isn't applicable, within the legal 30 days. To people who aren't familiar with German workers' law, it's illegal to terminate a contract immediately and within the legal period of time in the same termination letter. You can do one or another, but not both at the same time. So I went to the government office to apply for unemployment and hired a lawyer to sue my boss for illegal termination. Over 2.5 months went by until I got a court date, and my boss was really annoyed when the judge explained to him that the termination was illegal and that he had to pay me for the last 2.5 months. But the illegal termination wasn't the only mistake he made. The judge gave me 2 options. I can accept an immediate termination on that day and leave without compensation, or I can have 2 months' salary compensation, but I have to work another month for the company. My boss laughed and said that I'm too scared to go back to work and that it makes him happy that I'd be leaving the court unemployed. He didn't look happy anymore when I asked him, "Why should I be scared? Do you want to beat me like your wife did?" So I took option B and went to work the next morning. My boss's brother was already waiting for me so he could hand me the termination letter and made comments about how difficult the next 30 days would be for me. I checked the termination letter, and after I've seen that everything was correct, I just said that I'm not feeling well, turned around and went to my doctor to get another 30-day sick note because of burnout. And yes, Germany is pretty great to be an employee in. We have almost unlimited sick leave, pretty good workers' protection laws, and in most cases, the other party has to pay for your lawyer and expenses when you win at court. So at the end, I had 3.5 months vacation with full pay, 2 months salary compensation, and he had to pay for my lawyer too because he lost at court. I could have sued my boss's wife for the slap too, but that would have been too much stress for maybe a couple of €100. She wouldn't have got into much trouble as a first-time offender, and I was just happy to get out of there with a good compensation. See, most of us who live outside the US look on some of the firing and employee mistreatment stories from there with horror and disgust, for good reason. This story here is a very good example as to why. A workplace in most other first-world countries has lots of checks and balances to keep us safe from awful people like the owners of this company. I honestly don't know what they were thinking or how they imagined they'd get away with it. Also, how does a presumably adult woman not understand that this car-scratching hiccup is really easily coverable? Having to take your car into a shop and fill out some forms is annoying, but not when the slaps should start flying in my books. Actually, that is the one thing that you could really exploit in the US of A. If an employer slapped you there, then you would really be set for a while. So yeah, the entire family running the business in question here are undoubtedly the villains, and they compound it by seemingly being completely clueless into the bargain. The author was very lucky that he found a doctor willing to sign off on a 1-month mental health leave. That is the part I'm most doubtful that most of us could swing. Well, win-win for him. No good deed goes unpunished. I run a gaming store, and one of the things our store does is give out free Pokemon cards. And let me tell you, when it comes to retail customers and free, you get the choosiest beggars. First of all, I want to clarify this is voluntary. The cards are not provided from our company, they're donated by the community. I've had mothers scream at me for not letting their kids take more than one. They leave bad reviews because we didn't have the Pokemon cards they wanted, and these free cards were all commons. The ones that floor me recently were these kids. I gave them the free cards and they looked at me and said, "We want free booster packs instead." It's moments like these that just make me want to give up on giving them away anymore. Yeah, this story is attracting a lot of comments saying that when you start some kind of store, you should never give away free stuff, which is a really sad sentiment because we shouldn't be so damn averse to generosity, but it seems to be an overwhelming piece of repeated advice here. I'm sorry, would sir or madam like a refund on the object that I gave you for free out of nothing more than wanting to help share some love of a hobby or simply out of the spirit of kindness? Also in the replies are quite a great crop of people who work for radio giveaways who maintain that people who win prizes are often some of the most ungrateful and picky jerks in the world. They'll apparently win a great second prize and then moan and gripe that they didn't get the first place one and try to obtain it out of sheer nerve. So yeah, I'm sure that there are graceful recipients of free stuff, but all well-off people who complain about their giveaways are absolute sacks of crap. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.